Good morning and welcome to another edition of All About the House right here on 88.1 myFM. I'm your host, Brian Turner, and very pleased today to welcome guests that are going to take a little departure from our usual conversation. We're going to be talking about birds. We're going to be talking about how to attract birds, how to provide food and sustenance for your backyard friends, because really a home isn't really a home unless you've got living creatures to share it with, and who would not want to share their property with the variety of winged species that we are blessed to have in this area. My guests this morning are Bob and Louise Volks from Gilligallou Bird in Almonte. Good morning, Bob and Louise.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for coming in. Right off the bat, I'm going to ask you to explain, what is a Gilligallou? Who's going to take that one?
Well,
Bob.
I mean, both Louise and I have some history with it. So, from our youth, in fact, when we were younger, a lot of the seniors of the time would call you a Gilligallou Bird if you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing. But it originally came from the Paul Bunyan stories, and it's a mythical bird from the Paul Bunyan stories. And we just the name kind of fell in our lap, and the fact that we were both accustomed to it from our youth, it just seemed to fit properly, and away we went. And it's a good name to have, because people either can say it and know about it, or they can't say it and want to know why. So it kind of works out.
And Gilligallou was a very rare mythical species that laid square eggs.
Indeed.
Yes.
So they wouldn't roll down the hill.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were spotted, so you could play dice with them.
Paul Bunyan and the boys had a great time.
But moving to where that name is now, over a storefront in Almonte, Gilligallou Bird, when did that start about?
So that started in 2011. Bob walked me into this space in Heritage Court that was opening up, and he said, "What do you think?" And I thought, what is he thinking? But we're both very passionate about birds, and he had this idea that he wanted to have a quality bird store, one that gave, we have seed that has no pesticides in it. We want to have quality products, all for the benefit of the birds. So it came to fruition.
And that's 14 years later?
And that's 14
almost.
Years later, almost,
yeah.
Yes.
And there is growing interest. I have to think that the pandemic, and when people were kind of homebound for extended periods of time, there was always an interest in improving your home or bringing more life, because you couldn't see life anywhere on the streets. We were all under social distancing rules and masking rules. So I have to think that a lot of people decided to pay more attention.
During that time, there were so many people that were working from home and looking out their yards and noticed the birds in the backyard. It was true that they really got interested in the birds, and so the level of people saying, "I must be that age because all of a sudden I see the birds," had really dropped to a young age, and we saw a lot of people putting pole systems and different bird feeders in and inquiring more about the birds in their backyard.
And as an example, you only have to look out the window here at our station. Our neighbors next door have installed a pole system, and that I've watched it every day, and that I'm here, and never really paid any attention, and now I get to look at all the species that are coming and going from that feeder.
Absolutely. And people, I think the other upside of the pandemic, if you want to say there was one, was that people slowed down and looked out the window and realized that there was things in their yard that they wanted to pay attention to and expand on. So it really worked well from that perspective, really. And I was happy that people took notice, because it's the change that we need to see.
And there are personal benefits from being able to attract more birds to your home and property. Insect reduction, for one.
For sure.
And what else have you found that people have? You see them every day in your store. What are they telling you when it comes to how they're benefiting from increasing the number of birds in their area?
Interesting. It's about getting back to nature, it's also taking the time in the morning or the evenings to watch the birds and learning their habits and their nesting and what they go through during the year. But it's also like a mental health benefit because you relax when you're doing this. It's not possible to get tense while you're watching nature at its finest, right?
Yeah, studies have shown actually that they're using it in mental health as a treatment to reduce anxiety and stress and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, people take ownership of the birds that are in their backyard, because I think there's very, very few people that come in and don't comment that they're my birds in my backyard, and it's from the ownership is the serenity and the pleasure that people get from it. So, and it rolls over into the fact that we make a connection with nature.
And science has told us for years that birds are great predictors of weather patterns, long-range weather patterns.
Absolutely.
If you take the time to observe and you take the time to look how they're nesting, where they're nesting, how they're gathering, it can be a sign. 'Cause, I mean, we get the best weather service that we can for our listeners, but we can't predict what's going to happen in October or November, but birds can.
It was interesting yesterday, actually. We were at camp for a couple of days, so we were kind of back in the bush at the cabin, and yesterday the bird activity was far superior than the day before. And look at the weather today. So they were stocking up, bulking up, if you like. And the feeders were busy. The chickadees were vocal. There was a lot of birds around yesterday just because of the weather. And we see that in the winter as well. There's a snowstorm coming. The day before, the feeders are very active. I think people would agree that that's very common.
And speaking of birds and the environment, we've had a lot of changes in our environment over the last few years. Severe weather events, some wild temperature changes, and forest fires seem to be in the news almost every day. And while we all know what the impact of this air quality is on humans, how are the birds handling it?
Well, the changes, pure changes in the habitat loss is, so there's obvious mortality as well, but the habitat loss is the huge part of it. And then it accompanies with all the other things, the light pollution, the noise pollution, pesticide use, and all those things. It just changes their way of going. So nesting, so you incorporate that in with the forest fires. The nesting percentages are down, just in general. They aren't nesting as much. And then when you throw in some other factors of environment, which is noise and light and what have you, they've actually studied it. They found that birds don't hear one another because of noise pollution. So in a town like Perth, for instance, that is relatively forested, a senior town, if you want to call it that, birds don't hear the call in the spring to realize that they need to nest. So the nesting percentages are down. So put that into the perspective with the forest fires. Obviously, the nesting sites are lost and what have you. The upside, though, is that there's rebirth after a fire. And so there's some studying being done now to determine just what role the birds play in that, in terms of seed transfer and what have you. But also with lichen and moss and different things, they've discovered that has become a fire break. And so birds are learning that that's an area that they can be during and after post-fire as well.
So they're great observers of us as well as their environment.
Yeah.
If someone has never thought about or just started thinking, I'd like to be able to attract birds into my backyard or onto the balcony of my apartment, what's the place and how would they start?
One of the things that we always asked when they come in and they're starting is, what is your environment? Like, what do you have? Is it an apartment building? What is the yard like? How big is it? Because, of course, we want to take into the account about squirrels. People often don't want the squirrels, and there is solutions for it. A pool system works really well, but that needs the required space to put a pool system that a squirrel can't jump over the baffle. Otherwise, we have great feeders that the squirrels get on, but they can't get to the seed. So it's all different kinds of things that we asked people what their backyard is like, and we help walk them through it as to what's the best presentation. And then it's about the seed for the birds. For all birds that are seed eaters, the black oil sunflower is a really good basic seed, and then when you get the mix, you get a wider variety of birds that come to your yard. And it's about knowing, people that want to draw in the cardinal, for example. Do they have cedars in their yard? Do they have, the location? Is there water? It's all kinds of things that we ask them to be able to attract in.
And you mentioned one variety of the black sunflower. What other what other types of organics and seeds are in the common mixes that people use around here?
Well, certainly our blends, and that's where we differ than most places, is the fact that we build our blends based on the study of birds. So we'll take, from an urban perspective, we'll take, 50, 60, 70 different species of birds, and then take different quantities of different seeds, build the blend, and then it goes in a biodegradable bag. So it's built specifically based on that science. And then there's no waste, no filler. It's fresh. It's grown last year. So with that study, you're actually, you're attracting the species that are living in your neighborhood. And then we have a rural blend that does the same thing, because the rural bird population and the urban bird population are two different things, really. There's some similarities for sure and some overlap, but they're two different species groups that live in different areas. So as Louise mentioned, when we ask people about their yards, if you're on a concrete jungle, then we're not, the success rate isn't going to be as great. But we've had people, a few years ago actually, a lady come in, purchased a window feeder that suctions cups to the window and a bag of seed, and said she was taking it as a gift to her sister. So we were no problem. And a few months later, the same lady comes back in, and she hands us a brown legal envelope with some photos in it. And she said, this is the feeder that we bought from you guys. I took it to my sister. She lives in a 14-story building in New York City. And she had house finches in the window feeder. We still have it hanging in the store. Well, if she'd have asked us, I'm going to take this to New York and put it in the 14-story building, we'd have said, I don't. But the unique part about that equation, and the reason I bring it up, is she lived across from Central Park. Habitat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is about the safety of the seed.
Yes.
There is no pesticide in our seed, and with everything that happens with humans that interfere with nature and birds, loss of habitat, windows, all that type of thing, pesticide in seed is to reduce bugs in seed, but it's also ingested by the birds. So much better to have fresh seed, quality seed that has no pesticide.
I can imagine with the physiology of a bird being so small, even the smallest amount of pesticide would have a dramatic effect on their health. We're going to take a quick break for some messages, and we'll be right back with more All About the House right here on 88.1 myFM.
There's a heat wave on the way, and our air conditioner is toast. Who do I call now?
That's easy. Carlton Refrigeration, Heating and Air Conditioning.
Why?
I used to ask that all the time, but I've learned they confirm your time with an email and picture of the technician, and they believe little things make a big difference.
Why?
It's part of the best possible service experience.
Oh, it's because they're the comfort specialists.
So simple, even a dad gets it. Find out why at carltonrefrigeration.com, serving Ottawa and the Valley.
When you've made the decision to sell your home, the team at Paul Martin's Coldwell Banker in Perth will make sure you get the most out of your real estate transaction. Access the most listings, the most contacts, and the most advertising, so your home gets more visibility and attention. that means positive results because you're working with real estate professionals who know how to close the deal and move you forward. Drop by and say hi to the team at Coldwell Banker, corner of Wilson and Foster Street in Perth.
Outdated cabinetry in your kitchen or bath? It's ready, set, gone with Rito Kitchens in Smith Falls. Soft closed doors, pull-out spice racks, pot and pan drawers, roll-outs, and a tilt-out at the sink so no space goes unpurposed. Add storage to your bathroom with linen towers and vanities that pop your decor and stow away your stuff. Rito Kitchen Center, 7 William Street West, Smith Falls. Call for a free consult at 613-283-4417.
For all your lawn care needs, visit KW Outdoor Power Sales. Stop in for quality equipment from zero-turn mowers and battery handheld equipment to generators and more. For 20 years, KW has provided unbeatable service with 1 to 4 day turnaround on all service and repairs. Experience premium products backed by superior customer support. For new equipment or factory-trained repairs on current equipment, call today. KW Outdoor Power Sales off Highway 43 between Smith Falls and Perth. Call Kevin or Elizabeth at 613-326-0844 or find them on Facebook.
You're listening to All About the House, the do-it-yourself and homeowner radio show on Lanark and Leeds 88.1 myFM. If you've got a question for today's guest or would like to join the conversation, call now at 613-264-8811, extension 8. That's 264-8811, extension 8 for All About the House.
And welcome back to All About the House. I'm your host, Brian Turner. My guests this morning are Bob and Louise Volks from Gilligallou Bird in Almont. And we're talking about what homeowners and property owners can do to attract birds, because they are a great benefit not just to our environment, they're a great benefit to our mental health, they're a great benefit to being able to feel not so isolated because you're sharing your living space with living creatures. We talked a little bit before this break about squirrels, because that's a real popular question, is keeping squirrels out of seed feeders and bird feeders, because they like the food as well. And we've talked about the pole system. That's where the feeder is mounted on a pole in the middle of the yard or wherever you put it. Yeah. And Bob, what exactly are these baffles and how do they work?
Well, there's a lot of variations, and one of the things, the other side of, just to touch on it a little bit quickly, is that we're supporting the birds as well by doing all of this, and more all the time they need our support with the changes of environment, climate change, pesticide use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with the pole systems and the specific feeders and things that we have, it's very simple, actually. It's all steel, it's painted black, it's powder coated over top. The baffles themselves are they move. They fluctuate in their position, and they're designed to be that way so that there's no leverage. The squirrels particularly can't grab a hold of it, and raccoons and things as well. People have a lot of trouble with deer also, so we have extensions that you can put on the poles so they get them higher. But Louise, I think, touched on a little bit earlier, is that the positioning so that there's a sufficient distance away from your pole system is very important, so and that squirrels can't jump from the top down. So there's all those things, and I get quite all the time people come in and say, well, they don't work. And then I'll ask, well, where did you put it? And I say, well, it's right beside my fence. Well, you can't put it beside your fence. Okay, that's so people have some challenges with the yard sizes today in some of the smaller communities, and townhouse communities, condos, that type of thing. But if you get it out in the open, it's 74 inches tall. There's 2, 3, and 4 arm tops that we can put on the top, and then the baffle goes about waist height or a little higher. So you need that height so that they can't jump over it. And if they do jump and hit it, it moves so it doesn't support them, and it's a simple solution. And then we work in with our Squirrel Buster feeders themselves. It's from Brome. It's a Canadian product out of Knowlton, Quebec. Excellent product. We're a full warranty authorized dealer. We do repairs. We replace parts. My record for a Squirrel Buster is almost 30 years old. So I replaced the spring mechanism and a shroud that goes on the center, and handed it back to the lady, no charge, and away she went. So it's quite simple to stop the squirrels.
So placement, and I don't think a lot of people think about the distance a squirrel can leap.
Yeah, indeed.
From a fence, from a tree branch, from the railing on your deck. or anywhere that they can get up to the same level as the bird feeder.
The other side of that, sorry about that. Sorry. The other side of that is that people, and ourselves included, will sit in their house and say, okay, here's my patio door, here's my kitchen table, I'm going to sit here and have a coffee. I'm going to put the feeder right out there. and they put the feeder right out there, and then the birds are saying, you know, if that thing was about 10 feet the other direction, I'd actually go to it. So when you talk about attracting cardinals and things, positioning is very important. The type of feeder is very important. So we got to think about where the bird is as opposed to where we want to have the feeder. And we have that all the time with people wanting to attract orioles, as an example. They are a high-level bird, so they live 60, 70 feet in the air. And you put it right beside your patio door, they don't see it, they don't know where it is, they can't come to it. So you have to think about those things before you make placement.
Even a cardinal, when you think about a cardinal, it's a ground feeder.
Yeah.
So anything that's platform-like or has a ledge or a U-shape that they're able to comfortably sit on, so it's little things like this that help you to attract the bird to the feeder, especially because a cardinal is such a high-wanted bird in the yards.
And if you compare that with in terms of the height, as you mentioned, so said an oriole is 60, 70 feet in the air, cardinals living at 8, 10 feet and nesting at 8, 10 feet. Or, so you have to have that consideration for them as well. And they, as Louise mentioned, they're a ground feeding bird by nature, so they don't perch well. So if you have a feeder that has a small little perching area, cardinals won't go to it.
And the other thing with if placement isn't considered is, especially if you have a lot of glass on the side of your home that your bird feeders are going into, then you risk bird strikes onto windows.
And it's a major problem.
Bird strikes are a major problem.
Huge problem. Numbers are astronomical. A new U.S. study actually just released in conjunction with Audubon. And Audubon is a world leader in terms of bird conservation and what have you, all animal but certainly birds. Their estimates now totally, and this is all birds, from geese to ducks and everything, is 1 billion birds lost every year in the U.S. from window strikes or building strikes. So there's a lobbying effort moving forward to try and integrate protection mechanisms in the construction of new windows, but certainly we have lots of solutions at the store also for people to put decals, the feather-friendly products, and all that kind of stuff to take away the reflection. But when you're placing your feeder, actually, you either have to have it further away from the window or very close to the window.
Okay.
So that halfway zone, if you're, say, 5 feet from the window, you're allowing that the fight and flight mechanism of the bird, that they'll go, woo, take off, bang, right into the window. So you either have to move that feeder closer or further away.
And one of the things just about windows and putting decals on them, they always must be on the outside.
Exterior,
I know a lot of people, they put things hanging on the inside of the window or close their curtains, feeling that that's going to deter the birds. But just the way our windows are made with that gas permeable in between, the reflection is always still on the outside. So it's key to note that any window decals or things you're putting on the windows must be on the outside.
And I've noticed just myself over the last few years that the decals have evolved as well. They're not just a complete opaque black shadow. Sometimes they have that speckling that allows you to see through them from the inside, but from the outside to a bird, they appear like a clear, heavy imprint of a bird they don't want to come in contact with.
The one product we have is UV activated, actually, so it actually illuminates with the UV of the daylight to take the reflection out. So they have a bit of a shelf life because the UV wears them out, but they work very well. And you have to have good concentration of cover on the window also. That's where the other product, Feather Friendly, where it puts actual grid pattern on your window, it's much more economical, gives you much more coverage, where sometimes people put a decal here, and 2 feet away they'll put another decal. Well, that's just leaving that space in the middle for the bird to fly through. And if you think about them moving through your yard, you see them go through the trees. They can navigate that little opening very easily. So you have to do the same thing with your windows.
When we talk about the types of birds people want to attract, we mentioned cardinals several times in the conversation, and I didn't realize until we were speaking during the break that cardinals are more of an urban bird than a rural bird, which kind of surprised me. Are there any other species that people are constantly asking you, how do I attract these, how do I attract those?
Finches are one that people are really attracting as well, and they have a unique seed. They nest in August because their seed is a Niger or a thistle, and of course thistle comes to seed in August, so the finch has learned to nest in August when their fruit is or seed is most available. So there are people that really enjoy that aspect of seed, and it's just a different presentation to bring in a different level of birds rather along with your mixed seed.
New species group, really. And we get finches in winter that we don't get in summer, and we get finches in summer we don't get in winter. So, and other birds for that matter. But that's a nice incorporation to have a Niger seed tube to feed year round. And the other side of that is squirrels don't necessarily care for that. So, and the openings are so small because it imitates the seed pod. So if you think of a grass field and there's seed pods all on top of the grasses, well, that's what the finches pick that seed out of the top of that plant, and the feeders mirror that activity. So that's the food ports are very, very small, and
so it's not just a matter of selecting the right seed; it's a matter of putting it in the right container, depending on what your environment is. Because, of course, if the species you're looking for is nowhere or seldom found in this area, you can spend all types of money and put all types of products out, and it's going to be pretty hard to change that.
And the historical ranges, that's something that I read quite frequently, and the data on that changes so fast. And if you talk about forest fires and all the other things that just purely, when we say cardinal, well, cardinal never used to be here at all. That's a Carolinian bird, and 100 years ago there was no cardinals here at all. Now they're year-round birds. So all that stuff migrates the same.
We're going to take another quick break for a few messages, and we'll be right back with more All About the House right here on 88.1 myFM.
Looking for reliable security solutions for your home or business in Eastern Ontario? Since 1975, Advanced Alarms in Smiths Falls has been protecting properties with innovative monitoring equipment and unmatched customer service. Plus, with advanced technology, you can remotely access and monitor your security system from anywhere in the world from your smartphone. Protect your property with Advanced Alarms. Visit advancedalarms.ca. Advanced Alarms, giving you peace of mind.
Here's how to turn your home into a work of art. Pick up a can of Beauty Tone paint exclusively at Rideau Home Hardware Building Center, Smiths Falls. Whether you're painting indoors or out, renovating, or tackling a DIY project, they have you covered. Beauty Tone paint is available in over 1,100 colors. Right now, save up to 25% on select Beauty Tone paint exclusively at Rideau Lumber, 58 Abbott Street, Smiths Falls. Here's how.
Contact Ennis Carpentry in Perth for residential and commercial building projects. For heritage renovations to homes and cottages loved by generations. For a new home designed to your standards of creativity and excellence with strict adherence to industry codes and prompt, attentive service at every level. Visit Ennis Carpentry at 144 Spruill Road in Perth or contact Mike Purden at Ennis Carpentry, 613-264-0208, EnnisCarpentryLTD.com. Delorier Custom Cabinetry, Hunter Douglas Window Treatments, Granite and Cambria, Quartz Countertops. Elite Cabinets and Interiors in Perth is your complete design and decorating center, accessing proven performers and introducing new ideas, designs and materials for the home front. Renovating, upscaling, or new construction, the difference is in the details. Watch your ideas unfold through the eyes of a professional designer. Visit the Elite Cabinets and Interiors Design and Decorating website at elitecabinetsandinteriors.com.
You're listening to All About the House, the do-it-yourself and homeowner radio show on Lanark and Leeds 88.1 myFM. If you've got a question for today's guest or would like to join the conversation, call now at 613-264-8811, extension 8. That's 264-8811, extension 8 for All About the House.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Brian Turner. My guests this morning are Bob and Louise Volks of Gilligallou Bird in Almont, a great shop that has been supplying this area for a number of years with all types of bird food, bird seed, bird equipment, seeders, feeders, you name it. And we've been talking about what it takes to attract birds to your property, what you should be thinking about when in terms of placing a bird feeder and what type of food they should have. I've asked my family to throw me some questions, and one of the questions came in: how long should bird seed last in a feeder, especially in the wintertime? Like if you put it out and it doesn't get all eaten, should you remove it and replace it, or?
I think the big thing is the feeder, and that's one of the areas of our business that we paid an immense amount of attention to, is to only sell or have functional, safe feeding products. So there's a ton of feeders out in the marketplace that don't have some components that we incorporate in, and one of them is airflow and drainage. So to answer your question about seed, it depends on that feeder. If it's seed sitting in there and wet all the time, particularly now that we tend to get a lot of various precipitations throughout the winter, it could be rain, could be ice rain, could be, all types of snow, all types of things. So the airflow and the ability to have the seed to be able to dry is a huge factor. So if it's sitting in the moisture and wet, a couple of weeks it's done. But if it's able to dry and reuse, it'll last for quite some time. And if your seed's not being eaten, and then there's something wrong there. Either you don't have the habitat, and or the fact that the seed quality was very poor when you put it out there, and that is a big factor also.
And I can imagine moisture can cause mold growth in the warmer weather, because we all know it doesn't take much for mold to grow on anything when we've had the weather where we've had this year.
Particularly finch feeders. So if you take a niger seed tube, if it doesn't have airflow and an ability to take the bottom off to clean it quite frequently, it molds in no time because it's very compact, and finches won't go anywhere near it once the mold starts.
Is there a particular time? This is another question that came from my family. Is there a particular time of day that you should put out bird seed, or I'm assuming that gets cleaned out on a regular basis because of that question?
We always enjoyed watching the birds, especially with our coffee in the morning, and so to have it out all day is fine as well. You can, we put it out and it stays there actually overnight, and we just allow the birds to come and go as they please. So dawn and dusk are a very popular time for a lot of the songbirds, seed eaters to come. The one bird that seems to be a nuisance right now that is a heavy day feeder is the grackle. He's the first to come and in the migratory process, and he's one of the first to leave. And so it is possible to be able to take your feeder down if you can during the day so that grackles aren't there. But feeding all day, would you say, is
absolutely,
is a good time
in
for...
the mornings. There goes the grackle at that feeder next door right now.
There you go. We can point to live examples of right outside our window.
And so they're a pack bird. And people have a lot of trouble with grackles and starlings and pigeons and different things. So if the food's available all day, day, they'll be there all day. So we quite frequently suggest that people take their feeders down just before dark, before they're going to bed or shutting down for the day, and then don't put them back out until the next day around 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that way those birds that are the pack birds, like the pigeons, starlings, and grackles, they'll move along because there's nothing available. They'll keep them moving, so you'll eliminate that problem.
Great tip. Something else I saw scrolling through your website, you've got a great blog entry where all types of information. We will make sure we let people know what that website is before the end of the program. Wildflower lawns and what they can do for birds. It's a movement that's growing. A lot of people are understanding that having those manicured Gulf green lawns certainly isn't natural. They take a lot of work. They take a lot of effort. Wildflower lawns.
Wildflower lawns. It is something that we really looked into, and I am going to pass this over to Bob because in one of our properties, he set aside how much of the lawn just for wildflowers and the amount of butterflies and insects and cross-pollination, but he really has extensive on this.
Yeah, so we took a fairly large area, probably, I don't know, it was 60, 70 feet long, 60, 70 feet wide, and we just worked it completely up, put in a native grasses and wildflower mixture from a company out of Guelph, Ontario, that works quite a lot in that industry, and it was amazing as it started to come up. It was virtually overnight as it started to grow. We attracted a variety of things from leopard frogs to the insects, mason bees, which is, for people that don't know, mason bees are a non-stinging, non-honey producing bee. They're purely a pollinator, so they were almost in there immediately, and we have bee houses and stuff at the store as well for people that want to incorporate that. And most recently we put a butterfly garden in the front of our home in Almont, actually, and there's finches, chipping sparrows, and the mason bees and stuff in there every day. So there's the extensive research that's been done on that is not only beneficial to the birds and animals that live with us. It helps with our air quality. It helps with the heat sink that we can reduce the heat pounding against the side of our house or whatever, and that's where our butterfly garden is right on against our front porch, and it faces straight west. It's extremely hot there, and it flourishes, and we actually need to enlarge it because it's the original size. It's saying it needs more room. So
and beautiful colors.
Yeah, and
of course it can save a lot of energy and maintenance.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Because they're perennial, so you're just maintaining the weeds.
And that's an interesting thing when you say weeds, because we've coined these plants and things as weeds.
Yes.
And when you start to study the wild grasses and native plants by definition, and I would have to look this up to be completely accurate, but is often referred to as post-settlement, because a lot of these plants and things came with the settlers in the early 1800s and 1700s and 1800s, and so native plants are perceived to be post-settlement, which is an interesting and another rabbit hole to be able to go down.
We're going to take another quick break for a few messages, and we'll be right back with more All About the House right here on 88.1 myFM.
For all your lawn care needs, visit KW Outdoor Power Sales. Stop in for quality equipment from zero-turn mowers and battery handheld equipment to generators and more. For 20 years, KW has provided unbeatable service with 1 to 4 day turnaround on all service and repairs. Experience premium products backed by superior customer support. For new equipment or factory-trained repairs on current equipment, call today. KW Outdoor Power Sales off Highway 43 between Smiths Falls and Perth. Call Kevin or Elizabeth at 613-326-0844 or find them on Facebook.
We need a new air conditioner. Who should we call?
That's easy. Carlton Refrigeration, Heating and Air Conditioning.
Why?
I used to ask that all the time, but I've learned they're the largest volume York dealer in Eastern Ontario.
Why?
They answer the phone, respond quickly, and have an award-winning team.
Why?
They're committed to being the absolute best at what they do.
Oh, it's because they're the comfort specialists.
So simple, even a dad gets it. Find out why at carltonrefrigeration.com, serving Ottawa and the Valley.
Upscale your kitchen with Rito Kitchen Center in Smith Falls. Maximize space, cue up expectations for aging-in-place functionality. Easy-to-open handles, push-to-open doors and drawers, quartz countertops, smooth to a waterfall edge. Whites, brown grays, and soft grays. Look to the future for a timeless backdrop. For high-low pricing on exceptional kitchen cabinetry, contact Rito Kitchen Center, 7 William Street, West Smith Falls, and take a look at ritokitchens.ca.
Buying or selling, if circumstances dictate that you need to get moving, contact Coldwell Banker Settlement Realty in Perth. Coldwell Banker provides professional, personal input with high-end video conferencing, walkthroughs, photography, floor plan, and digital document signatures. A clear, results-based strategy supported by a well-connected team of community-based professionals. List it, sell it, and move forward with Coldwell Banker Settlement Realty, 2 Wilson Street East in Perth.
You're listening to All About the House, the do-it-yourself and homeowner radio show on Lanark and Leeds 88.1 myFM. If you've got a question for today's guest or would like to join the conversation, call now at 613-264-8811, extension 8. That's 264-8811, extension 8 for All About the House.
And welcome back. I'm your host, Brian Turner. My guests this morning are Bob and Louise Volks of Gilligallou Bird in Almont. And we've been talking about, what else? We've been talking about getting birds into your life, being able to support them with food, being able to give them the right environment. And the nice thing about birds, if you are a birder, if you are someone who's interested, the population changes with the weather. So we've got migration, and we've got new species that come in the fall and species that leave at the end of the summer. What can we expect in this area as the fall approaches?
We have so many people at this time, like it's summer, but it is fall around the corner. And for September, it's a peak season for the songbirds that migrate to go, and also for the shorebirds. You'll find that the songbirds, they will migrate at night. And they do that because of the predators. One of the reasons is their predators, which is hawks. They are generally around during the day, but scientists have said that the stars help the birds go to the destination that they are headed for, because they will go as far south as Central America. And then in the October, you'll start to see the hawks that migrate. They migrate during the day, and they take the thermal winds, and that's how they migrate. And it's really amazing to watch this, and there's some wonderful areas to get to know the migration maps that you would be able to go to be able to see some of these migrations.
And that's interesting. If birds are not only great weather predictors, they can read stars.
They're celestial, yeah.
They're celestial.
Yeah, for sure.
They're great navigators. Mm-hmm. And so it really dispels the idea of bird brain.
Yes.
And if anyone really ever doubts that, there are a lot of videos and a lot of studies done on measuring the intelligence of birds, crows especially.
Crows and ravens.
Yep.
Who are able to solve puzzles, who are able to work their way through mazes in record time, and
their memory.
We are going to ask you to pop your headphones on, because Kevin is telling me I've got a call coming in, and that's how we hear it. So Kevin's going to pass it through, and if we push the right buttons, we'll get a contact. There we are. Good morning and welcome to All About the House. We've got you on the air. Do you have a question for Bob or Louise?
Hello.
Hello.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
The details you're talking about for the glass doors, how does will they stay on during the winter, or will they peel off with the cold weather?
No, they'll definitely stay on the windows, and it's really nice because they're static, so it's not any glue that goes on the window.
Okay, so they're safe for the winter.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And another bird you haven't talked about is the hummingbird.
Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an extensive bird that we pay a lot of attention to, and we were talking about migration. And, you know, a lot of the birds are starting to stage early migrants. Some of them have moved along. But the hummingbirds will be here. I've seen them ourselves personally till in and around our Thanksgiving that we'll still see them. And then the population seems to be quite healthy this year.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of birds around. And because they're so... One of the things with the hummingbirds, and because they're so possessive and territorial about their food, is that one feeder will only support so many birds. So,
yes. Well, do you have a minute that I can tell you a story?
Go ahead.
My hummingbird feeder was getting way down, so I brought it in and made up some more stuff. And they were flying around there looking for it. And as soon as I put it back out before I got in the door, they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you see lots of fighting at your feeder, it's time for the second feeder, we always say.
Oh, yes. Well, maybe so, because I got quite a few. But that's all I wanted to know was about the detail that you put on the outside. I don't want to buy one. Where can I get them?
You can get them right in our store at 14 Mill Street in Almont, or we can ship them right to you. We ship all across North America, and our website is gilligallowbird.com.
And I don't have a computer.
Okay, well, no problem. You can come to Almont and have a visit with us, and or give us a shout, whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you.
You don't sell them in the stores?
Yeah, we have them in the store, yeah. And
they're about the same quality as you would sell?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood there. I'm not 100% about that. I couldn't answer that question. I'm not sure what's available other places.
Yeah, because I have so many birds. I have a cardinal that when the feed is empty, she taps on the window.
Yeah, that's right.
They like to communicate.
That bird has you trained.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering my questions, and you have a good day.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Oh.
And that brings up a point when we mention hummingbirds. A lot of people are under the misunderstanding that, we have another call? Sorry, I'm going to have to get you to put those headphones on. Good morning and welcome to All About the House. Did you have a question for Bob or Louise? We've got you on the air.
Yes, good morning, folks.
Morning.
My question to you is I'm interested in replacing a set of binoculars for viewing. So do you have a type that you would prefer if you were going to buy some yourself? And if so, what hour size?
Well, it varies a little bit on use, but the standard binocular is an 8x42. Or a 10 by 42, and the large number. So the 42, as an example, is the size of your the diameter of the lens. So it's in millimeters. So and the 8 or the 10 would be the magnification. So an 8 and or a 10 by 42 would be very sufficient. We have several different brands that we've used over the years. I think the big thing as it relates to binoculars, or any optics for that matter, is that you get what you pay for a little bit. Even from a camera lens point of view, there's cheaper versions, but you get a cheaper version lens and you're never satisfied. So we often say that to get a good binocular of a brand, various brands, but Kawa, Nikon, of course. There's several other brands from Japan, Sikorsky's from Europe. They're all very high end, and what it is the glass that's in the lens. So that would be the first thing. But you're going to spend $300 to $500 minimum to get yourself a half decent pair of binoculars.
Right. Okay. So when I'm reducing the lens size down to, say, 32 rather than 42, what would I be doing to the view?
You're going to eliminate the amount of light capture that is available with that particular optic, and therefore your sight vision isn't going to be as good, and certainly low light it's not going to perform for you very well. So they want that bigger lens, that 42 millimeter lens at least, will allow that light to come in. And if you have the proper glass inside of the higher quality lens, they work very, very well at low level light.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much for your call.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Take care.
Bye.
The question that I was leading into was, when we were talking about hummingbirds, a lot of people are under the misconception that as long as it's sweet, it's good for a hummingbird. That's not necessarily the case.
Not at all.
No. What we're finding today is our white sugar is over-refined. So there's absolutely zero nutritional value for either us or the birds. It's not harmful to the hummingbird, but it won't give them any nutritional value. We have a hummingbird nectar that is plant-based sugar, but it has vitamins in it. So it more closely resembles the nectar that allows some nutritional value for the hummingbird.
Now, because we're just about out of time, I didn't want to leave without making sure people know how to find you. You're in the Heritage Mall at the bottom of Mill Street in Almont.
Yeah.
14 Mill Street, yep.
And that's a beautiful building. It's got several great retail outlets in it. And, of course, yours is one. And you can't miss it when you walk in.
We're right in the middle.
And you'll see all the seed, all the feeders, all the displays. Gilligallou.bird.com, and Gilligallou might sound hard to spell, but it's not. Gilligallou bird.com is how they find your website, and you've got lots of information there about what products you carry, and recommendations for certain species and so on.
Absolutely. We're about being a resource for people as well as quality products.
I can't thank you enough for coming in this morning. It's been a great conversation.
Our pleasure.
A lot.
We really enjoy it.
Thank you, Brian.
We will be back next week right at this same station at 8 o'clock for another edition of All About the House on 88.1 myFM.